I didn't think they'd lock me out. Not after everything. Not after all the times I stayed up late so they could rest. All the groceries, the rent, the little birthday cakes I made when no one else remembered. But when I finally asked for something back, a little help, they changed the locks and taped a note on the door like I was some stranger off the street. Just 3 words: "You're too much." I stood there with my suitcase, still holding a bag of takeout I brought for dinner. I thought maybe they'd be happy to see me home. But all I heard was music and laughter, and their voices on the other side of a door I paid for. You ever give so much to family that you don't even realize when they've stopped seeing you as family? Just as a resource. A walking safety net. That was me. That's still me in some ways. And if you've ever felt like that, like you were loved only when convenient, then maybe this story will feel familiar. It wasn't always like that. Back in 2020, right after everything shut down, they called me crying. Taylor had just left her fiancé. Savannah said her studio gig dried up overnight. And Haley, well, Haley never really had a plan to begin with. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed that night, Caleb brushing his teeth, and I said, they just need a place to land for a while. A few weeks. A month max. He didn't argue. He rarely did, especially when it came to my sisters. He just looked at me, towel over one shoulder, and said, "You sure you're up for that?" And I said, yes. Because back then I still believed being the strong one was something to be proud of. That if you had more, you gave more. That's what family was. The first month wasn't so bad. Taylor reorganized the pantry and printed little labels. Savannah helped with photos for my business website. Haley folded towels once. But by the 3rd month, they stopped asking before using my credit card. Taylor said she needed it to hold a deposit for a car rental, but the charge never reversed. Savannah ordered organic wine online for the house and posted it on Instagram with a caption about abundance. Haley said she'd pay me back for her laptop repair. She never did. I didn't speak up right away. I kept telling myself, they're going through a hard time, this is temporary, they'll get back on their feet. Meanwhile, I picked up extra consulting gigs. Stayed up past midnight on Zoom calls with clients in other time zones. I started ordering groceries in bulk, buying paper towels by the dozen. Cooking dinner for 5. Cleaning up for 5. Sometimes I'd find the living room full of their friends, people I didn't even know laughing over wine and sliders. I'd come home from a client meeting and see shoes I didn't recognize at the door. No one looked up when I walked in. It's a strange feeling when your own house stops feeling like home. When you go from "this is mine" to "where do I fit in this space," Caleb noticed. He didn't say much, he never liked to push. But one evening, as we sat on the back porch, he passed me a glass of tea and said quietly, "I think they forgot whose name is on the mortgage." And I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was the first time someone said it out loud besides me. The night I came back from the business trip, I knew something was off before I even stepped out of the car. There were no porch lights on for me. No open door. No one called out Lena the way Haley usually did from the kitchen. Just the muffled sound of music coming from inside and laughter. I rolled my suitcase up the walkway, juggled a bag of takeout in one hand, briefcase in the other. And then I saw it, the note, taped right to the front door in Taylor's handwriting. "You're too much." I froze. At first I thought it was a joke. Some silly inside thing I missed while I was gone. But when I tried my key, it didn't fit. I looked down, new lock. Deadbolt gleaming. Changed without a word. Inside, someone turned the volume up. I could hear them laughing, my sisters. My blood. The ones I stayed up working for. The ones I defended when friends said I was being used. I knocked once. Twice. No one came to the door. I stood there holding dinner. Still warm. Still hopeful. I even reached for my phone, maybe one of them forgot to tell me something. But no. Group chat was silent. Last message was me, "Be home by 7 picking up Ty. Y'all want yellow curry or padsy, ew." No one replied. I stepped back onto the lawn. The lights inside flickered through the blinds, shadows moving across walls I painted, chairs I bought. A roof I paid to patch after that spring storm. Not a single trace of me left. And just then, a car pulled up behind mine. Caleb. He didn't say a word, didn't ask questions. He just looked at me, suitcase still at my feet, and handed me the spare key to his apartment. No pity. Just a quiet knowing. I slid into the passenger seat and didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't say a thing. Because somewhere deep down I already knew. This wasn't sudden. This was a long goodbye they just never had the decency to say out loud. They said I was too controlling. Too much. But they forgot. I paid for the control. I paid for everything. There was a time I thought love meant never saying no. Especially to family. Especially when they'd lost so much. In 2020, when the world shut down, they came to me one by one. Taylor was first. Her lease ended just days before the first lockdown hit. She showed up with 2 suitcases and a half-broken coffee maker. "I'll only stay a month, Lena. Just till things reopen," she said, half laughing. She'd always been the bold one, made plans without backup, spent money like it grew back. But that month became 3. Then came Savannah. She'd been house-sitting for a couple in Buckhead, and when they canceled their European vacation, she suddenly had nowhere to go. I remember her words like a slogan, "I'll make it worth your while. Just imagine the Instagram reels we could do from here." She called my kitchen aesthetically tragic. The next morning I found her rearranging my spice rack for a video. And then Haley, my baby sister. The one I used to carry on my hip. She called crying. Said the boyfriend she'd moved in with wasn't who she thought he was. Her voice shook. She didn't ask. Just said, "I don't know where else to go." What could I say? I made space. Cleared the guest room. Bought an extra bed. Set up a little reading nook with the lamp she used to love. For a while it felt warm. Like I'd done something right. We shared dinners. Watched old shows. Laughed over silly memes. It felt like family. But slowly the edges began to fray. Taylor forgot to Venmo her half of the water bill. Savannah ordered $89 worth of sushi and asked if she could use the house card. Haley stopped coming out of her room for days, then cried at 2 a.m. and asked if I could call in sick for her part-time job. I kept saying yes. Because that's what big sisters do, right? You say yes. You absorb. You bend. You hold everything up so no one else has to fall, but even foundations crack. And I didn't hear it at first, because I was too busy being grateful they still needed me. Until one day I walked into the kitchen and saw Taylor waving my credit card like it was hers. Taylor didn't even blink. "Oh, relax," she said. "I'm just ordering a few throw pillows. This place needs texture." She flipped her hair over her shoulder and smiled like I should be grateful. Like spending $200 on boho cushions was a public service. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. I didn't want to start a scene. Savannah strolled in with her phone recording herself. She pouted at the sunlight streaming through the window. "This light is unreal. Lena, can you just hold the reflector board for a sec?" Before I could respond, she was already placing a ring light on the counter I'd just cleaned. Haley walked in last, barefoot, wearing one of my sweaters. She looked half asleep. Opened the fridge, frowned. "There's nothing I can microwave," she mumbled. "Can we just do Thai tonight? I'm too tired to think." No one asked how my day was. No one noticed I hadn't sat down in hours. That night I found the dishwasher open, half-loaded. The chicken I marinated still untouched. My laptop charger borrowed again. My towel damp and bunched on the floor of Haley's room. And then there was the text from the utility company. Payment overdue. I stared at the screen, heart sinking. It wasn't a lot, just a few hundred. But I knew it wasn't just a blip. It was a pattern. And I had drawn the lines myself. I thought back to all the tiny comments I'd brushed off over the years. "You're the stable one. Thank God you're responsible. We'd be lost without you." They used to sound like love. Now they felt like labels. Roles. Traps. Caleb once said, "Lena, you're not a system. You're a person." But the thing is, systems don't get to feel tired. Systems don't get to ask for help. They just run until they break. It happened on a Tuesday. I was working from the dining table reviewing invoices for a client when I opened the shared credit card dashboard. It wasn't something I checked often, maybe I should have. But that day, I did. And there it was. $1,238.9 for Uber Eats, DoorDash, Postmates, Thai, sushi, Starbucks 3 times in one day. All in my name. All within 1 month. My fingers tightened on the mouse. I scrolled. Savannah's favorite bubble tea. Taylor's morning lattes. Haley's self-care ramen at 2 a.m. I closed the laptop and walked to the living room. Taylor was there scrolling on her phone. I sat across from her quiet. Then I asked softly, did anyone think to ask me before charging over $1,000 in takeout this month? Taylor didn't even look up. God, Lena. Are you really gonna count every dollar now? That sentence. That tone. Like I was being petty for wanting respect. I stood up slowly, tried to keep my voice even. I'm not counting, I'm noticing. She laughed. Actually laughed. Whatever. You're just stressed. You always get like this. I went back to my room, and that night, while they laughed over a rom-com I'd seen 100 times, I pulled out a spreadsheet. Not for work. Not for clients. Just for me. I listed everything. Rent. Utilities. Groceries. Streaming services. Emergency dental. Uber rides. Frozen pizzas. Every cent I had covered. Every time I had said it's fine when it wasn't, and when I looked at the total, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared. The night the power went out wasn't even stormy. Just one of those quiet Thursday nights when the air hung heavy and you could feel the fatigue of the week settling on your shoulders. I had just come back from a late run to Trader Joe's. My tote bag was still by the door. I remember thinking maybe I'd finally get them all to sit down and eat something home-cooked. Nothing fancy. Just roasted chicken couscous and the asparagus that was on sale. I was chopping onions when the lights flickered. Then everything went black. Total darkness. For a second, no one moved. Then came the usual chorus. Ah, you've got to be kidding me. Why now? I felt around for the flashlight I kept on top of the fridge. When I turned it on, the beam landed right on Savannah's face, already illuminated by her phone screen. She wasn't trying to figure out the outage. She was live streaming. Guys, she said, with a dramatic sigh, we're living in actual chaos. No electricity. No Wi-Fi. And the chicken isn't even done. I blinked. The chicken. That's what she said. Haley shuffled in behind me, clutching a blanket like a child. Lena, she whispered, is the food. Okay, should we order something? From the couch, Taylor called out, I swear this place is cursed. I told you this house had bad energy. I stood there in the kitchen, flashlight in one hand, chef's knife still in the other. No one asked if I was okay. No one offered to help. No one even seemed to remember that the place they were mocking was my house, the one I worked late for, sacrificed vacations for, fixed the damn roof for. I set the flashlight down, lit 2 tea light candles from the emergency drawer, and finished cooking by feel. The asparagus didn't need light, it just needed time. Like everything else. Meanwhile, Savannah was still filming. Comment if you've ever had a power outage during dinner. This is so on brand for my life. She cooed into her phone, her face perfectly angled in the candlelight. I placed plates on the table. No one came. They were too busy complaining, scrolling, filming. So I sat down by myself. The food was warm, nutty from the couscous, savory from the chicken. I chewed slowly, staring at the flickering shadows on the wall. Caleb texted around, then power outage, saw the alert. You okay? I didn't reply. Not because I wasn't okay, but because the words to explain it all felt heavier than the dark. By the time the power returned about an hour later, the food had gone cold. Taylor reheated her plate, ate 3 bites, and left it in the sink. Savannah posted a reel titled, When the Wi-Fi Dies, But the Drama Lives On. Haley cried herself to sleep over a boy who hadn't texted back. And me, I washed the dishes in silence. The dishwasher I bought 2 Christmases ago still blinked error. It was the first time I wondered what if I wasn't the one fixing things anymore. That night, I stopped asking. Stopped hoping they'd change. Stopped believing love and obligation were the same thing. And I started calculating not just the money but the years I'd lost. They always thought silence meant surrender. But I've learned something. Quiet is a tool. Sometimes even a weapon if you know when to use it. The morning I walked into Reuben Callahan's office, the rain hadn't stopped since dawn. The sky over Marietta was the color of old paper. I remember thinking, it suits the day. Reuben was Caleb's lawyer once. Now he was something else. A mentor maybe. Or just someone who saw through the fog I'd been living in. He gestured for me to sit. Didn't ask how I was, just said, let's get started. I slid over a folder, receipts, property tax statements, utilities, mortgage agreements, screenshots of group texts, Postmates, charges. Even a post Savannah made tagging my address in a skincare brand giveaway. Reuben flipped through every page with those sharp, dry fingers. He didn't rush, didn't blink. Then he looked up. None of them are on the deed, he said. None of them are legal tenants. Not on the lease. Not on the mortgage. Not even a utility bill. I exhaled. Not out of relief, out of realization. For 4 years I had built a home, paid every cent, kept the lights on the fridge full, the doors open. But legally I was the only name that ever mattered. Reuben leaned back, hands folded. You have options, Lena. They've been relying on your silence. You don't have to raise your voice. Just stop saying yes. It didn't sound dramatic. Or cruel. It just sounded true. I nodded. Quietly. Later that evening, I sat in Caleb's car parked just outside the driveway I no longer called mine. He handed me a thermos of chamomile tea. Didn't say much. Just looked at me then said, you don't owe anyone the pieces they keep breaking. I didn't answer. I just held the cup, felt the warmth. Let the weight of that sentence settle where all the old promises used to be. That was the night I turned off autopay. I came home around noon. Didn't knock. Didn't call. I just stood across the street and watched. Taylor was on the phone out on the porch, legs propped on the railing like it was some weekend retreat. Savannah drifted past the glass door, silk robe trailing behind her, sipping a matcha latte. Haley was inside, telling Alexa to play the old lullaby I used to hum when she had nightmares. No one saw me. No one asked about me. But the lights were still on my dime. The groceries in the fridge, I ordered them. Every piece of furniture, every wall hanging, they all had my fingerprints. I pulled out my phone, opened the banking app, turned off every single autopay, gas, water, power, Wi-Fi. 1 hour later, I called the water company. Had them reroute every new bill to my new email. Step by step, quietly. That night when they called to say the Wi-Fi was cutting out, I didn't answer. I was already logged into the Airbnb site, downloading every photo of my home, the one they treated like a hotel. Each image captured a lie I had allowed to live rent-free. And I was finally ready to evict it. The next morning I met Reuben again. His office smelled like cedarwood and strong coffee. No pretense. No pity. He placed a folder in front of me, one I hadn't seen last time. Inside was everything I needed: LLC paperwork, asset protection strategies, property restructuring under a shell company. This, he said, tapping the folder, isn't just legal. It's personal. We called it Ashmere Solutions. Ashmere, my grandmother's maiden name. The only woman I'd ever seen walk away from fire without turning back. By Friday, the house was no longer in my name. Not in a way they could find, at least. It sat under the shell of Ashmere Solutions, quietly reclassified as a rental holding legally, strategically mine. I didn't pack a single bag. Didn't announce a thing. I just changed the locks back. Forwarded a legal notice to the tenants. Yes, I used that word, giving them 30 days to vacate. Savannah posted a prayer request on Instagram. Taylor made a passive-aggressive TikTok about toxic family energy. Haley left a voice memo whispering through tears, "Lena, please don't do this." But I didn't respond. They said I'd never leave them, and they were right. I didn't walk out. I made them leave me. They used to call it our place. Taylor wrote that in a group chat once back when we still made Sunday pancakes together. Now she called it hers. I hadn't stepped foot on the front porch since that spring morning they changed the locks. But I didn't need to. I rented a small Airbnb 3 blocks down tucked behind a retired librarian's garden shed. It smelled like lavender and cedar. Peaceful. Small enough for silence to echo. From the second-floor window, I could see the tip of my old roof, the one I paid to repair after the last hailstorm. That roof had kept them dry through every thunderous night. They never mentioned that part when friends came over. Instead, they'd pose in the living room I furnished under the prints I hung. "This is home," Savannah said once in a live stream. "My sisters and I built this from love. Built it from love or borrowed it from Lena." I started keeping notes in a red spiral journal. Nothing fancy, just the kind they sold at Target 3 for $1. I tracked packages, food deliveries, visitor cars, trash bins left on the curb but never brought in. Some days I'd walk by on purpose, phone in hand, earbuds in, pretending I was mid-call. I wasn't. I was counting. 2 porch lights burned all night. Power still on. They hadn't paid that bill. On the 14th of October, the HOA sent a second notice. I knew because I used to be on their mailing list. The envelope still had my name. Even the postman looked confused. He stopped me outside the Airbnb mailbox once. "Did you move, Miss Avery?" I smiled. "Just downsized." He nodded like that made sense. By late October, the warnings started stacking up. A yellow tag fluttered on the front gate, past due water notice. The sprinkler system I installed went dry. The front yard began to brown patch by patch. I sat across the street on the park bench, sipping lukewarm coffee from a gas station cup. Watching. At 2:12 p.m., Savannah came outside in slippers, phone pressed to her cheek. She kicked the mailbox shut, muttering something I couldn't hear. But her live stream went up an hour later. Internet went out again. Totally unfair. We've been loyal customers for years. Her mascara had smudged beneath one eye. She dabbed at it with the corner of her hoodie sleeve. The comments flooded in. "Call them babe. You deserve better. OMG, this always happens to women. Tell your landlord off." I almost laughed. Landlord, they didn't even realize I'd stopped the autopay last month. Every bill, electric, water, trash, internet, had been under my name. Quietly, legally. When I turned them off, I didn't slam doors or send warnings. I just let it run its course. Taylor texted Haley in the old group thread. "Did you pay the bill, or were you too busy buying throw pillows again?" Haley responded with a sticker of a crying cat. And I took a screenshot. I didn't need revenge, I needed receipts. That week, the HOA sent a second letter. Uncut grass. Overflowing trash bins. Noise complaints after midnight. I never imagined seeing our little blue house on Ashmere Court fall apart this quickly. But it wasn't mine anymore. Not on paper. Not in their eyes. Savannah tried calling me. Once. Then she left a voicemail. "Hey. I know things got weird, but the Wi-Fi's down again, and Taylor says the water might get cut off. If you could just look into it." She didn't say thank you. She didn't ask how I was. I didn't reply. I forwarded the voicemail to Ruben. He responded with a thumbs up emoji and one line just a little longer. So I waited. I watched the porch light flicker, then burn out. I noted when the trash bins stayed full for 2 weeks. I circled the date the city posted the first foreclosure warning on the front door. I'd made sure it was posted during daylight. I wanted them to see it. Together. Some lessons aren't loud. Some storms arrive quietly, like winter creeping into the bones of a house no one thought could freeze. The day the electric company officially shut off the power, I was sitting by the window in my Airbnb. The sky was the color of stone. Cold light filtered through sheer curtains. I held a cup of weak coffee, black and silent, and I smiled. Not from joy, from clarity. They didn't know the lights were going out because I'd stopped payment 3 weeks ago. They didn't know I'd requested all service notices be mailed to the LLC address, my address. They thought it was a glitch. They always thought someone else was in charge. That night, I scrolled through Savannah's live stream. She lit candles and said it was a romantic vibe. But the panic in her eyes betrayed her. Taylor paced in the background on the phone, hissing about unpaid balances and billing errors. Haley sat cross-legged, whispering that maybe I had changed the settings from afar. I didn't comment, I didn't text. But I watched. And I kept every clip. I labeled folders on my desktop by date and incident. Created a timeline of negligence, enabling, and legal grounds. Each entry felt like another stitch in a new fabric. Not revenge, restoration. Because sometimes the most powerful thing a woman can do is stop begging to be seen and simply take everything back piece by piece. The HOA notice arrived in my inbox on a Tuesday morning. Subject line: ownership transfer confirmation, Ashmere Solutions, LLC. I read it 3 times. Not because I doubted it, but because it was so quiet. No parade, no announcement. Just a line in black and white. As of the 14th of October, full legal and financial responsibility for the property at 81 Cresswell Lane is transferred to Ashmere Solutions, LLC. My name wasn't on it. But it didn't have to be. I closed the laptop and looked out the window toward the cul-de-sac. The house was just visible through the trees, wrapped in peeling shutters and dim windows. A shape I had loved once. A shape that forgot me. Inside, I imagined them still bickering, Taylor blaming Haley, Haley weeping to Caleb, Savannah filming another honest moment for people who didn't really watch. They hadn't noticed the cracks in the ceiling. They hadn't seen the pink envelope from the HOA marked final warning. They hadn't noticed the walls collapsing. And I didn't say a word. I just waited. It was a Sunday morning. The kind where the light cuts sharp through the cold, and even the birds seemed to hold their breath. I didn't wear black. Didn't dress up like some villain in a courtroom drama. I wore the same cardigan I'd folded 100 times after doing Haley's laundry. The same jeans Savannah once called too mom-core to borrow. And I didn't knock. The front yard was scattered with half-wilted tulips from Easter. A chipped coffee mug sat on the porch rail. The same one I'd bought for Taylor at that arts market, the one that read, "Not today, chaos." I stepped up to the door like I belonged. Because I did. Reuben stood behind me, calm, briefcase in hand. And Caleb, he stayed by the gate. Didn't say a word, just watched like he'd promised he would. I didn't have to fumble. Reuben handed me the documents, the ownership deed, the HOA confirmation, and a small white envelope sealed with quiet closure. We waited only a minute. Long enough for Savannah's dog to bark. Long enough for Haley to peek through the blinds. Then the door creaked open. Taylor, barefoot. Hair wild, coffee in hand, like she still ran the place. "What are you doing here?" she snapped. Reuben was the one who answered, steady as ever. "Miss Lena Hallstrom is here to exercise her rights as the sole legal owner of this property. You've received 4 formal notices. Today is enforcement day." Taylor laughed. Like it was a joke. Like we were on some episode of bad reality television. "You're kidding, right? You're seriously going to throw your own sisters out?" I didn't flinch. Didn't blink. "You changed the locks," I said. My name was never taken off the deed. Behind her, Haley stepped forward. Pajama pants, watery eyes, that familiar quiver in her voice. "Lena, we didn't think you'd actually go through with this." I looked at them. One by one. And I didn't say anything cruel, just the truth. Clear and still as the air that morning. "You had 4 years. I gave you 4 months. Now I give you the truth." Behind me, Caleb opened the gate. Slow. Silent. And for the first time in years, they had to step back. Not because I pushed, but because they finally saw I wasn't coming home. Savannah came down the stairs holding a pile of throw pillows. She looked like she'd just woken up from a dream she didn't want to end. Her eyes darted between me, Ruben, and the envelope in my hand. Wait, she said, her voice cracking. We didn't know. We thought. You didn't say anything. I turned to her. I sent the notice. 3 times. You signed for them. She blinked. No, that must have been. I mean, Taylor handles the mail, that's the point, Savannah, I said. I handled everything. For 4 years. The silence that followed felt like a dropped plate. Ruben gently passed the documents to the HOA representative who had just walked up behind us, a gray-haired woman named Marcy. We'd met last week in her office with the brick fireplace and the box of homemade biscotti. She didn't say much, just looked at Taylor, Haley, and Savannah like a teacher waiting for the class to admit who cheated on the exam. Taylor's voice rose. This is so dramatic. You don't even live here anymore. What's your problem? Just let it go. You said family was everything. I exhaled slowly. Family is everything, I said. But this isn't family. This is a system that kept taking and never gave. I let that hang, not as a threat, as a reckoning. Haley folded her arms across her hoodie. Her lips trembled. But where are we supposed to go? That was the first honest question I'd heard in years. I stepped aside, letting Ruben speak again. As per legal procedure, you have 24 hours to vacate, he said calmly. You may take personal belongings. Furniture remains the property of Ashmere Solutions, LLC, unless proven otherwise. Savannah gasped. 24 hours, are you serious? Taylor slammed her cup down on the stair rail, ceramic cracking. Wow. So this is who you are now, little Miss LLC, walking in with your lawyer like you're better than us. I didn't answer. Not with words. Instead, I reached into my coat pocket and handed Taylor a folded sheet, the grocery bill from January, the roof repair invoice, the Uber Eats summary, every dollar, every little thing they told me to forget, printed, dated, and quiet as stone. Her hands shook. Haley tried again. Lena, please. Just talk to us. Can we at least, I don't know, start fresh? We didn't mean to push you out. I looked at her. And for a moment, just one, I saw the little sister who used to braid my hair and leave sticky notes on my bedroom door. But that girl had grown into someone who didn't knock when she moved in. Someone who hadn't once asked if I was okay. I spoke slowly. You all wanted space. You wanted freedom, now you have both. They stood frozen on the porch. 3 women who had called me too serious, too cold, too much. Now I was none of those things. I was finished. The sun had risen high enough now to touch the roofline. Paint peeling. The gutter sagging on one side where I'd once stood with a wrench balancing on a chair no one offered to hold. Taylor kicked the screen door open behind her, dragging a duffel bag. Not even zipped. Clothes spilling out like their version of dignity. Savannah followed, her arms cradling makeup palettes and a laptop covered in stickers. She didn't make eye contact. Only Haley lingered. Still on the porch. Still barefoot. Still hoping that the sister she remembered would crack, that I'd drop the formality, rush in with hugs and offers of one more chance. But I didn't. Caleb walked up then, slow and steady, holding a set of small moving boxes we'd picked up from the UPS store the night before. He placed them beside the steps, nodded toward the house once, and stepped back. Still no words from him. None needed. Ruben checked his watch. 21 hours remaining, he reminded them. Taylor muttered something under her breath, a curse maybe, or a memory she didn't want to admit. Savannah tripped slightly as she turned, mascara already streaking. Haley stood still. Where will you be? She asked. I tilted my head. Somewhere I don't have to explain my worth. She looked down at the porch floor, at the spot where my name used to be on a welcome mat they'd long since thrown out. By the time the moving truck arrived, the light had shifted. Not golden, not warm, just clean. Like something had been scrubbed from the air. They filled it fast. Trash bags tied like suitcases, laundry baskets crammed with tangled cords, takeout containers. Savannah was still crying, but now it was silent. Taylor didn't speak at all. Haley, though she paused on the porch one last time, her arms wrapped around the hoodie she always said was mine. I didn't ask for it back. She turned toward me. If we'd just said thank you, would that have changed anything? I looked at her. Not unkindly. Thank you isn't something you say at the end. It's something you show every day. She nodded, eyes low, and walked off the porch like a guest finally realizing the party was over. When the truck pulled away, I stepped up to the front door. The same door I'd painted soft blue the summer of 2021. The door they locked me out of. I turned the handle. It opened without resistance. Inside, the air was stale, scented with old perfume and something sour. Furniture askew. A wine glass in the sink. A lipstick-stained coffee mug still on the counter. I didn't rush. Didn't sigh. I just walked room to room, flipping switches, opening windows, letting the light in. The house didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like a body exhaling. I stood in the hallway beneath the vent that always buzzed when it got too warm. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw anything. I just stood there, hands in my coat pockets, and remembered who paid for every brick, every bulb, every damn foundation crack they ignored. And then I picked up a dry sponge from the sink, turned on the water, and started wiping down the walls. The front door didn't creak anymore. I'd oiled the hinges myself last week, kneeling in silence with an old rag and a small silver can I'd almost thrown out. The way the door opened, now smooth, quiet, certain, felt like something I hadn't known I needed. Inside, the rooms echoed differently. Not empty. Just waiting. The walls were white, not sterile but fresh. Every corner had been cleaned, repainted, unburdened. Not a single trace of perfume lingered, no hair ties on doorknobs, no passive-aggressive, sticky notes left on the fridge. Just one canvas hung in the living room now. A soft landscape I painted from memory, the lake in Vermont where Mom once took us back when being a sister still felt like something simple. The brush strokes were loose. Blue-green and a small hint of orange in the sky. I didn't sign the painting, but I knew it was mine. Outside, the garden was starting to come back to life. Hydrangeas I thought had given up last winter were blooming again, quiet and unapologetic. So was I. The kettle clicked off with a soft pop. I didn't rush to pour the tea. Instead, I let the steam rise, curl, dissolve into the morning air. The table had moved. I'd shifted it 3 feet to the right, angled it toward the window instead of the hallway. Funny how something so small changed the way the light fell across my plate, how it made breakfast feel like a choice, not a habit. Caleb had offered to help rearrange furniture the week after the house was mine again. I told him no. Not because I didn't need help, but because I needed to do this part alone. Still, he came by every Sunday. Never rang the bell. Just showed up with a carton of fresh eggs or a new tin of tea, sometimes with nothing at all. Today he set a small mug on the counter without a word, then leaned against the doorframe like it was always meant to hold him there. I didn't speak either. Some silences aren't awkward. They're earned. My phone buzzed on the counter. A name I hadn't seen in years. Miss Lennox. You may not remember, but in 2021 you gave me an extra week on my rent when I lost my job. That saved me. I just bought my first place. Thought you should know. I stared at the message. Smiled a little, then turned the phone face down. Not everything needed a reply. I opened the windows. Every single one. Let the breeze move through the hallways, curl around the corners where old voices used to echo. No more perfume. No more arguments muffled behind closed doors. Just pine and sunlight and the faint creak of the old maple tree out front. The floor was warm beneath my feet. I'd left the rugs rolled up. I liked hearing my steps again, like the house was finally listening. In the kitchen, I folded dish towels into neat thirds. Put them into the drawer I once couldn't keep closed because someone always borrowed them and forgot to return them. Now everything had its place, and it stayed there. The dining chairs didn't match perfectly anymore. 2 were thrifted. 1 was borrowed from Caleb's garage. But they circled the table like they belonged. They didn't need to be perfect, just honest. I lit a small candle on the windowsill. Sage and lemon. Not to cleanse anything. just because I liked the scent. From the living room, I could hear a bird chirping sharp, insistent. When I walked over, I saw it. A small wren brown and scruffy perched right on the outer edge of the window screen. It didn't fly away, it tilted its head, blinked once, and stayed. I didn't wave it off, didn't shoo it. I just watched it breathe. I sat at the dining table with my sketch pad. Not the kind I used for work. This one had soft, ragged pages. Edges worn from years of being carried untouched. I sharpened a pencil, pressed it to the paper, and began drawing the house, but not as it was. As it could be. I tilted the staircase, moved the couch to face the window, not the television, turned the guest room into a studio, light spilling in from a skylight that didn't exist yet. The dining table was round now. No edges. No hierarchy. I even drew a small herb garden off the kitchen. Lemon balm. Basil. Rosemary. I'd never grown herbs before. Didn't matter. I paused, looked up. The real house was still here, quiet, steady, half-lit by afternoon sun. But the one on paper, it breathed with possibility. I added a final touch. A chair by the window. Just one. Not for solitude. For sovereignty. I'd always believed home meant full rooms, clinking dishes, overlapping voices. Now I understood sometimes home is the space you don't need to fill. That evening I opened the last page of the journal, the one I hadn't touched since the day they left. It still smelled faintly of ink and old paper. Still held the weight of every version of me that tried to hold us together. I sat at the same table where I'd once cried over unpaid bills, where I'd baked birthday cakes. No one thanked me for where I'd listened to laughter from rooms that locked me out. Now it was just me, and that was enough. I picked up the pen. Not to document pain, but to close it. The words came slowly. But they were clear. They were my sister's. But now I am my own family. I didn't sign my name. I didn't need to. Across the hall the walls were bare except for one small canvas. The lake. The orange sky. A reminder that peace doesn't arrive with noise. It arrives when you no longer need to explain yourself. I placed the journal in the drawer, locked it. Left the key beside it, not because I'd ever open it again, but because there was no need to throw it away. Some chapters deserve to rest. As I turned out the light, I caught my reflection in the glass, hair pulled back, soft shirt, no armor. No more spare keys, no more spare self. Just me. And a house with my name on it. I used to think home was about who shared it with you. About voices in the hallway, laughter in the kitchen, shoes by the door. I kept filling every room with love, hoping one day it would echo back. But love without respect is just noise. And I lived in that noise for too long. They said I was too much, too careful, too controlling, too cold. But I was just tired of carrying the weight of 3 grown women who never once asked if I was okay. I gave them space, food, safety. They gave me silence, bills, and locked doors. It wasn't rage that made me change the locks. It was clarity. See, clarity comes quietly. One day you're standing outside your own house. And instead of begging to be let in, you realize you deserve to walk away. That house has my name on it now. Not just legally, emotionally. Every inch has been repainted, every sound reset. No more footsteps I don't recognize. No more unpaid debts disguised as love. No more Sunday dinners where I sit at the table alone. And still, if they ever call me again, I will answer. But this time not from the porch, from a place that is mine, built with boundaries and peace. Because real love is never given out of guilt. It's chosen daily by people who see you, not just use you. If you've ever been the one who gave, and gave until you forgot your own name, maybe this story reminds you it's okay to start over. To choose yourself. To come home to you. If it did, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me, what does home mean to you now?